All right, everyone. We are ready to get underway. And with that said, just a little bit of housekeeping before we do. So as this is a webinar today, if you do have any questions, I would like you to use the Q&A chat. So if you look at your Zoom menu, you'll see there is a Q&A chat there where you can pop in any questions. My colleague Alison, she's online today and she'll be here to help with any of those questions as they come through. There we go. Now, this session is being recorded as well. So if you do want to get a recording of this, do feel free to reach out to console support afterwards in the next day or so, as they will be able to provide you with a recording then. As we go through, of course, I will be running through everything, what you need to know with regards to console end of financial year in Console Cloud today. However, if you feel that we have missed anything, also feel free to pop that into chat and I might try to answer that towards the end of the session. With that said though, let's just have a bit of a quick look at the agenda. So we're going to start off with end of financial year fees and external financials. We'll have a look at preparing for end of financial year, conducting a trial run, and then the actual statement run itself. And we'll just round this out by having a look at what the statement looks like, so you can have a bit of an understanding of what that is. That said, let's share up console and get underway. There we go. Looking good. There we go. Cool. Excellent. Alrighty then. So first thing we're going to have a look at in the system just to make sure it has been configured. And this is particularly important if this is the first year that you're doing end of financial year in console, is we're going to have a look at our settings and our agency fees. Now, agency fees is something that we do want to make sure is set up for end of financial year, as we may have a specific end of financial year fee that we want to be charged, well, on a specific date and time around that time of year. As you can see, we've done a few within this particular system, and we're going to set up another one today so you understand how that works. Coming over to Add New, I'll have the option to come in here and create a scheduled fee. So I'm going to call this end of financial year statement fee. I'm going to put that on a schedule, and I want this to trigger yearly on the 30th day of June, as an example. You could have this trigger earlier if you'd like, and if you run a financial year that is not based around the Australian calendar, you could trigger this at any day of the year that you want. I'm going to put that in there at $15, and I'm going to select my dissection, end of financial year statement fee. Additionally, just going to make sure that for all new agreements that are set up within my system, this is going to be applied. Create agency fee, pops that into the system. And if I bring this up, I can now add this to all management fees if I need to. Again, as I said, this is really something that you probably need to do if this is the first time that you're running end of financial year within Console Cloud, as this should have already been set up if you have done so beforehand. Now, the next thing we're going to have a quick look at are external financials. Now, external financials can be particularly important for specific owners, or if you've migrated recently and you need to add some information to the end of financial fees, end of financial year statements that are going to be produced by Console Cloud that are not going to be generated through your regular trust process. This is where this external financial function comes in. So what we're going to have a look at here is, I'm just going to pull up a property. This one here will do. And we're just going to jump into the owner. Now, on our owners, we have the option to put in external financials. External financials, in a nutshell, allow you to put financial information on the end of financial year statement that is not going to affect your trust account balances. Good example of where you might choose to use this is in a takeover, where you may have taken it over very close to the start of the most recent financial year, and you just want to create a complete statement from your agency. And there's a few things there you're aware of that just need to be added. Let's just go with a simple example here. So we're going to click Create External Transaction here. On the right-hand side, this gives us quite a few options here to build that out. I'm going to put that transaction date in. Let's say that this was in July last year. Let's go with an amount of $100 and $10 GST. We've got a source system, so this might be from a migration from Gateway or REST. Well, generally speaking, it is a migration from Gateway or REST. And we have our transaction type. So what kind of transaction that's going to be in there. Let's say water debt in this particular case. This case, we're going to have, let's call this water debt, net debit, sorry. I'm going to go with the dissection expense, water rate. We'll put a reference in there if we feel we have one. And the BPay method that was used at the time. And let's go with, well, sorry, I should have said payment method that was used at the time. Clearly, I was going to go with BPay. Clicking Save is going to pop that in as an expense that is going to appear on the end of financial year statement. Of course, we could also do income. A good example of that would be rent income. In fact, the most common example is rent income. So let's pop that in there. Let's just say at $1,000 worth of rent there. Rent from X to Y. We'll pop that in there for last year as well. Section, rent, income. And this one here can be deposit. There we go. So what that's done is that's created a rent income on the financial year statement and a water rates expense on the end of financial year statement, so that those are counted towards the totals for this owner's end of financial year statement without putting anything through the trust and therefore creating any issues balancing. All right. Now, let's talk about what needs to happen before we run end of financial year within Console Cloud. And one of the things I really like about this for Console Cloud is it's actually a process that everyone's familiar with. Once you've done one end of month, you've done what you need to know for the most part. And you're more or less following the same process. And so, as an example, we're coming up to the end of the financial year. And prior to the 1st of July, we're just going to follow the process we would normally follow. Where are we? You'll process all your bills and invoices up to the end of June, coming through, making sure that any bills that you have in here are being processed and paid off, so that those funds are getting transferred across to the creditors, and it's getting marked as an expense. More importantly, it's getting marked as an expense so that if it needs to appear as an expense on the end of financial year statement, it is. You're going to be obviously receipting any rent that's come into the system, making sure that all monies are receipted up to the end of the month, end of June that is. Any daily banking that needs to be taken care of is getting processed through here as well, so that those are any income is presenting as income, as long as it has cleared, of course. And any pending payments are processed here as well. as much as possible so that all of the agency fees are getting charged as expenses and appearing as expenses within that financial year, of course. Finally, once all that's done, same as you would at the end of any month, your disbursement, or prior to the end of any month, running your disbursements, paying your owners out so that they get their income. So let's just go with so we're looking at creditors here, so paying out any of our creditors and any of our owners through here where we can. Where are they all? Check. There we go. And dispersing our agency fees. Now, if you don't disperse your agency fees until the 1st of July, that's fine if it's something you would do on the 1st of the month, of course. More importantly, we want to make sure that from a end of financial year statement point of view, our owners are getting paid so that that is showing up as income on their end of financial year statement. So we can just go through and quickly disperse that through there. With the final step being reconciliation and closing the month out. So from our reconciliation screen, it will be on the 1st of July, of course. It's time to close that month. We have, of course, at this point in time, receipted everything up to the end of June. Let's grab this amount here. I'll pop you up here. Okay, there we are. Checking to make sure we balance. So we've got our payments in there, our disbursements. I'm going to clear my adjustment and looks like we balance. Closing the month out as we normally would. Coming through, close and download. And we're now ready to run our end of financial year. As we're balanced, we're up to date, and we've done everything we possibly can for the previous year. Following the standard end of month process. At this point, there's only really a couple of steps here that you need to follow when you're generating your end of financial year statements. So we're going to stay within accounts, coming down to reports, and we're going to be selecting our financial year statement report. Now, a couple of things to know about this. You do have the option to use this to regenerate reports. So you can see through here, we've got previous years for that this system has been running. And you have the option through here to do a custom date range. And this can be quite important, in particular, if you're running on a non-Australian financial year. Potentially you run calendar year for your financial year statements, or maybe you're running to an overseas calendar. You have that flexibility to change that through there. In this case, though, we're just going to have a look at doing a trial run for one of our owners. And if I wanted to do it for a custom date, potentially I could do so. But let's just do current financial years. I'm going to select a specific owner. I'm just going to have a search for them there. Sue Wilson is going to be my owner of choice in this particular case. And I can just click download. Clicking download from here is going to download a copy of Sue's end of financial year statement. At which point I can open that up and I can have a bit of a look at it. Now, I've got a copy I've produced earlier, so that's this one here. We're going to come back through and have a bit more of a look at that. But it gives you that chance to have a look at that end of financial year statement prior to sending them out in bulk. And it gives you a trial run effectively in that situation. Now, if we're ready to send this out to the entire database, the next step from here is to come through, select all owners, and click send statement to all owners. I know that's a scary step because it seems like there should be more, but really you've done all the work that you need to do. You've receipted everything all year. You've got all your disbursements in there. You've paid all your creditors, and the income and the expenses that are sitting within your system are correct. So And most importantly, you've made sure you've balanced and you've closed out June. Now, and because you know that, you're ready to send this off. And all you need to do is click this button. Now, my training system, of course, this is going to take a little bit of time, and that's just simply going to go out to a no reply email somewhere. Good stuff. But within your system, that is now getting sent out to all of your owners. All right. Not seeing any questions. Hopefully that makes sense to everyone. Okay, so there are, just before we go in and have a bit of a look at the statement that I've got up top there, I do want to just mention a couple of things here. So there are a couple of FAQs that come up every year. One of them is around inactive owners. So if you have an owner, so let's just go with a residential owner here, doesn't really, and we'll go with an inactive one. Let's take this top one. So inactive owners will not receive an end of financial year statement. And if there's anyone who has been made inactive that needs to receive an end of financial year statement, you'll need to come through and make them active. So this is a case of making the property active as well as making the owner active. At that point in time, this person will then receive an end of financial year statement if they need to. If you're looking to potentially have a look at lost properties within a year where you might have that responsibility, you can use the gained and lost report to have a look at the properties that have been lost, as long as you've been recording those reasons. It's also not a bad idea to potentially ask the PMs if there's anyone on that list, just to make sure that those properties are made active. That said, though, if you miss anyone and they do get in touch with you to say, hey, we didn't get the end of financial year statement from you, it's not too hard to simply just come through to your reports to make them active, go through to your reports, so come back to accounts, down to reports, selecting your financial year statement report, the year, and then just sending it out for that specific owner once they've been made active. So you do have that option too. Now, one of the other things with regards to the financial year report, it's important to know that the financial year statement, the financial year statement will not appear on portals. It is something that is only provided from the system. This is a service that generally most agencies charge for. And as a result, it is something that they should get in contact with the property manager to request if they have not received it or what was sent out didn't get through to them, so it can be regenerated and sent through to them again. Additionally, there are a couple of just things to note with regards to the end of financial year dates. Obviously, the dates are very, very important. And we have found, well, not found, there sometimes can be some points of confusion. So it's important to note that when using the financial year through here, specifically the transactions will sit between the 1st of July and the 30th of June. It will not include transactions outside of that for that particular year. So from the 1st of July from the next year or 30th of June from the previous year. It's only going to include the transactions within that year, of course. Seems logical, but we do get a few questions about that. And when processing bills and pending payments, it is always, and because of that date range, it is always based, and this is, sorry, the reason why that date range is important is because when processing bills and pending payments, you want to make sure they are within that date range, which is why we strongly recommend following your standard end of month process and not changing that. Because if you were to process your bills on the 1st of July, as an example, those are not going to show up on the end of financial year statement as expenses. They'll show up on the next year's as expenses. All right, finally, let's have a look at one of these statements. So this is a copy of an end of financial year statement. It is admittedly not from the current financial year, but from the previous financial year, but the statement itself hasn't changed. You'll have a total for all properties up the top here. So in this case here, Bobby Brown does own a few properties, and we can see we've got a total up the top, income, expenses, and net position, including GST, where that is applicable there as well. You'll have an itemized breakdown of the income and the expenses through here. And then as you go down, you have a per property breakdown. And that'll just go per property. Each page is its own property as it goes down. At the bottom, you have again the totals for all properties, just summarized on the last page there. All right. With that said, that was everything we wanted to run through today with regards to how end of financial year works within Console Cloud. Was there any questions from those that are online? Just before we wrap things up. No, all silent. If we ran a day behind receipting on June 30th, nope. So when you receipt into the system, while you can edit the received date, so you're talking about coming in and putting the received date in. Okay, so that from a receipting perspective, that's fine because you will receipt up to the end of the year. It's bills and bills processing where you wouldn't want to do that on the 1st of July. And if you want to do end of financial year on the 2nd of July, that's fine. It's just not going to include any bills that you've processed after the 30th of June. Yes, you'll definitely need to process all of your bills on the 30th of June or before. If you process any bills on the 1st of July, they will not be included on the end of financial year statements. Receipting, however, that's a different matter because that's something that you can change the receipt date. Yeah, no worries. All right. Cool. Well, if there's no other questions, coming back over to my share screen here, just a quick recap. Check your fees, check your external financials if you need to put any of those in. Prep for your end of financial year by following your normal end of month process. Conduct a trial run to have a look at what the statements look like before you do your final statement run. And it's just good to get an understanding of what your end of financial year statements look like before you send them out to your owners so that when you do get some questions coming through, you're easily able to answer them. Otherwise, thank you all for your time today, and hopefully we'll see you on another webinar